Hey, good afternoon to you. It's 4:06 now. News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up on the program today, Amy Riccardi will be with us, candidate for Loudoun County School Board. Boy, could they use a change in leadership there. That's at 4:30. We'll talk to Caleb Kirschner at 4:50. He's with Loudoun County Board of Supervisors. He's running for reelection. And then at 5:30, Mike Van Meter is here, Republican state Senate candidate in the 33rd District, running against Democrat Jennifer Carroll Foy. Yes, as you might have gathered, it is election time. Early voting continuing, ends tomorrow, so get that vote in while you can. And also election day itself next Tuesday. A lot of energy to support a lot of these Republican candidates right now. Let's see it through to the end. You can join us today, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. Boy, the craziness on college campuses continues, doesn't it? As a bunch of pro-Hamas, that would be pro-terrorist sympathizers, keep taking to the quad to emphasize that point. And in some cases, scaring the hell out of the Jewish students on campus. We saw recently that there was a student by the name of Patrick Dye, a Cornell student, who was busted, accused of making violent threats against Jewish classmates. He's a 21-year-old engineering student, and he's a junior. He was arrested by federal authorities Tuesday for making a string of disturbing online posts over the weekend threatening to kill and rape Jewish students and to bring an assault rifle to campus. Where did all of this craziness come from? Let's explore it with our next guest. It's Ji Van Fleet. She's a survivor of Mao's Cultural Revolution in China, and she's got a brand new book out called Mao's America, A Survivor's Warning. Ma'am, great to have you back with us. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me back.
Tell me, first and foremost, what do you make of all of these campus demonstrations in support of violence against Israelis?
Well, they are the same people, aren't they? They are the same people supporting BMM. They are the same people that supporting radical gender ideology. Now they're supporting terrorism. Same thing, same people, and the same toxic ideology. And that is Marxist ideology based on oppressors versus oppressed, familiar to everyone by now. And that's the ideology I was taught when I was little in China. And the whole world was divided into two, oppressors and oppressed. Oppressors were the evil people, and oppressed was the virtuous people. And who was the oppressor? The people that used to own property and the land. Even after their property and land were taken away, they had that title, and they have to, it's part of themselves, and they passed down to their children and children's children. And the Cultural Revolution was all about against those who were classified as the oppressor, or in Chinese word, or in CCP's term, the black class.
So in that construction, oppressor versus oppressed, if I understand it correctly, the oppressor is always wrong no matter what, and the oppressed can never be wrong.
And the virtuous, not just they can never be wrong. And anything you do to the oppressors was justified. That include everything, raping, killing, kidnapping, and torturing. And that's what the Red Guards did to those so-called enemies.
Tell me about your book, if you would, Ms. Ji. You've got Mao's America, A Survivor's Warning. Tell us what you wrote about in this book and what people will get if they read it.
Yes. First off, I want to tell people that this is a book that it's not that I want to write it, but I had to write it. Because in this book, I laid out the parallels of the two cultural revolutions. One was the Mao's Cultural Revolution that I experienced in China 50 years ago. Another is the woke Cultural Revolution that's unfolding in front of our very eyes. And they are the same. And the tactics the same, the goals are the same, and the players are all the same. And remember, the Mao's Cultural Revolution is a youth revolution. They weaponized the young people. household, because those were the people that indoctrinated by their government school from birth on. As a little baby, they were indoctrinated. And that's how Mao could mobilize them and use them as his foot soldiers. And we see the same thing happening here.
So
those activists, on the street, the same thing, indoctrination.
Tell me, so if you would, walk us through how it was that youth in China were propagandized and brainwashed and during Mao's revolution. And how are young people being brainwashed now? How do those two things compare?
First of all, the CCP destroyed religion. And the religions in China, it's Buddhism, Confucianism, Christianity, whatever, it's all gone. There's no religion except Maoism, which is the new religion. And they were told that your parents, just biological, no big deal. The real parents are the party and the Chairman Mao. And so your loyalty is always to the party and to Mao. And so that's how they conditioned. And as long as Mao asking to do something, there's no right or wrong. It is Mao's order that is the truth. So during the Cultural Revolution, the kids not only attacked the so-called black class, and they even turn on to their parents and reporting on their parents if they find that their parents have the incorrect thought or say something that is not politically correct. And many parents get executed. And the same here. In order to indoctrinate kids, they have to remove religion out of their lives. And we see church under attack. And then they take over the educational institutions, higher education and public schools, or just in kindergartens, and so that they can teach the children the ideology that they want them to learn. Without religion, there's no moral guidance. There's no moral compass. So it's the ideology made it very simple. Oppressors versus oppressed. You're always on the right side if you go after the oppressors. No thinking required. Not that we complain that the public school no longer teach kids how to think. No, they don't teach them to think at all. They teach them to be conditioned to trigger words. If it's an oppressor, go after it. And that's what we are today. No thinking involved.
When we see all these reports that school systems across the country, but especially in the more left-wing districts, are counseling students to keep secrets from their parents on issues surrounding gender and sex and the things that are being taught in school, that must set off so many red flags for you.
Yes, parents are the problem. So parents have to remove. So the government, the party have access, direct access and control of the children, because if you control the children, you control the future. And that's exactly what happened in China, and then the American Marxists are doing the same thing.
So you mentioned that in China during Mao's Cultural Revolution, that the idea was that Mao was the centerpiece. He could do no wrong. Anything he did was exactly what everybody needed to do. What's the equivalent here in the United States? Is there something that is in place of Mao here in America?
Yes. I got asked this question a lot. Said, this is not a cultural revolution. We don't have Mao. That's true. We don't have a face. We don't have one individual. What we had is a group of people, the elite, the globalists, the hide behind, and we know some of them, but we don't know a lot of them. But that is always a very, very small group of people wanting to control the rest of us. So they're the ones that they launched, they waged the war against America, against the West. And so it is the same thing. The difference is one is a face with and a name and an individual, the other is a group of them.
One of the other features that I'm noticing is the absolute contempt that our ruling class has for what we used to refer to as democracy, or in our case, a constitutional republic. They do not like the opinion of the American people when it works against their goals. For instance, we're hearing the White House lately saying that Americans are just too ignorant of how good the economy is. And the reason Americans don't think the economy is good is implicitly is that they're stupid. That's what the White House is saying. They don't use those words. They say, oh, we need to keep telling people about how great Bidenomics is. But at some point you have to admit, actually, no, the economy is terrible and the American people are right.
They depend on people being ignorant, not only ignorant. So now the slogan, we have heard that from the World Economic Forum, have nothing, no, own nothing and be happy, right? In most China, we have nothing and we have to pretend to be happy. If you look like you're dissatisfied, you are a problem, you are resistance, you'll get into trouble and identified as a dissident, and you know what happened to those people. So that's what's happening here. Yeah. So you have to be content. You just even if you don't agree, but you better agree with them. That otherwise you will become a dissenting voice, and where we're going is the same direction. Eventually, there is no truth. The party controls the truth, and all we have to do is obey and agree.
We're speaking with Xi Van Fleet. She has a new important book out called Mao's America, A Survivor's Warning. And Ms. Xi, when you see the raids, the SWAT team raids on, for instance, pro-life activists who pray outside of abortion clinics, or you watch as now over 1,000 January 6 defendants are pursued for merely being in or around the Capitol building on January 6th of 2021. And not only are they pursued, but then they're subsequently locked up. Are you seeing the same parallels as you saw in China?
Yes. In China, here we have two-tiered justice system, even though the left pretend it's not the case. In China, they openly said their system is two-tiered. The justice only applies to the allies, the red class. And for the black class, no justice for them. They're the enemy. They deserve nothing but punishment, imprisonment, or exile, or death. And that's very clear. They don't even hide it. So now we pretend we have a justice system, which is really two-tiered and turned against conservatives. In China, they just drag you out of your house, and then they just took you to gulags. There's not even pretending necessary. You don't even have to pretend. And eventually, that's where we'll be.
Do you believe this is what they're doing to Donald Trump now?
Yes. And I had an interview about that, and Trump retweeted. Yeah.
You did an interview about this recently, and Trump retweeted it? Yeah,
and I found it out later. Yes, I had an interview on Fox and Friends, and I said about this. This is absolutely what we call proletarian dictatorship, and this is what we have now. And he retweeted. Not retweeted. He tweeted out in Truth Media.
In Truth Social, yes.
In Truth Social, and people tweeted on Twitter.
Well, good. I'm glad you're on his radar, and that's because that's your assessment. You think that that's what's really happening. You see the same parallels as they try and destroy their political opponent using the justice system.
Yes.
All right. Well, the book, again, is Mao's America, A Survivor's Warning. The author, the great Xi Van Fleet. Ma'am, always so nice to talk to you. Thank you for sharing your wisdom on this subject again today. Thank you. All right, let's go to the phones. We got David calling in from Fairfax, line 1. David, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, thanks, Vince. Your last caller couldn't have been more correct. And if you need any reminders, Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, and all their staffers like to talk about how Mao was their favorite political philosopher, and everything comes from the barrel of a gun. And Hillary Clinton, a week or two ago, let it out of the bag when she said the Republicans need to be forcibly re-educated. It is horrifying. It is real.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a phrase that a bunch of lefties have used all over their cable networks. They constantly say that the right needs to be, quote, re-educated. There's a horrific history involved in that word. And David, you're right about the people who are around Obama and Biden. In fact, Biden right now has a woman working for him, senior advisor to President Biden, by the name of Anita Dunn. You remember her? She famously said that one of her favorite philosophers was Chairman Mao. Take a listen. This is the audio of Anita Dunn many years ago now.
And then the third lesson and tip actually come from two of my favorite political philosophers, Mao Zedong and Mother Teresa, not often coupled with each other. But the two people that I turn to most to basically deliver a simple point, which is you're going to make choices. You're going to challenge. You're going to say, why not? You're going to figure out how to do things that have never been done before. But here's the deal. These are your choices. They are no one else's. In 1947, when Mao Zedong was being challenged within his own party on his plan to basically take China over, Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalist Chinese held the cities. They had the army, they had the Air Force, they had everything on their side. And people said, how can you win? How can you do this? How can you do this? Against all of the odds against you. And Mao Zedong said, you fight your war and I'll fight mine. And think about that for a second. You don't have to accept the definition of how to do things, and you don't have to follow other people's choices and paths.
She's inspired by Chairman Mao. Inspired. And in fact, she was driven out of the Obama White House because of that. It became a big problem for them, PR problem. And then she was welcomed right back in the Democrat world, now working for Joe Biden. Typical stuff. But that's right. That's a woman who loves Chairman Mao. She's totally inspired by the guy. Hey, coming up on the program, I've got a lot more for you, including more of these candidates who are running in Virginia for your vote in a critical election. It all ends on Tuesday. Have you voted yet? Hey, good afternoon to you. It is 4:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up, we're going to be joined this hour by Caleb Kirschner. He's running for re-election on the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors. Very troubled county, in need of a lot of good leadership. We'll talk to Caleb about that. Mike Van Meter will be with us at 5:30 as well, a Republican who's running for State Senate in Virginia's 33rd District. If you haven't cast your ballot yet, now's your chance. You can do it through tomorrow if you're a Virginia resident, of course. And Tuesday is Election Day, a big one in the Commonwealth. The control of the state Senate is on the line. Well, certainly both houses. And the Republicans looking to take control of the state Senate. It's just such a big time. Also, like I mentioned, Loudoun County is in a bit of chaos. There have been 11 current or former students at Parkview High School, according to ABC7, who have overdosed on opioids this semester between late September through October. 4 of those overdoses were in school. We're just finding out about a lot of this because of the Loudoun County Sheriff Mike Chapman. And now the Loudoun County school system is scrambling to explain why it didn't really tell parents everything they needed to know. For more on this, I want to bring in a candidate for Loudoun County School Board. Amy Riccardi joins us now. She's running in the Sterling District. Amy, good to have you with us.
Hey, Vince. Thanks for having me on today.
Of course. It's great to have you on. Tell me first and foremost what you think of this scandal. And yet again, Loudoun County involved in another scandal involving the school system, this time a very deadly threat in the form of these opioids.
Yeah, so I'm actually running for the Sterling District School Board seat here in Loudoun County. Parkview High School is within walking distance of my house, so I live here in Sterling Park. It's really sad, and I mentioned this with Larry O'Connor earlier this week. On Wednesday Tuesday when this all broke into Wednesday, I said there's going to be more to this story as the week progresses, as the weeks progress. And that's in fact what's happened. So there's been a lot going on. I think there's a lot of question about parent notification, who was notified. This is a 80+% school with minority majority, primarily Latino community. I think there's been a lot of question. I've been talking to a lot of the Latino parents this week, trying to figure out, what they've been told, what they understand. And I think a lot of them are very confused. I think a lot of parents in general are pretty confused about what's going on. Some parents have been notified. Some parents are in it because they're really engaged. Some parents work a lot, 1 or 2 jobs and are a lot less involved in their kids' school. So, I know that the school administration's got quite a challenge ahead of them as far as notification and whatnot. And there's it just raises a lot of questions for me about what's actually happening between the school administration, parent notification, and then Loudoun County Public Schools and their administration and the superintendent. And then there's the sheriff's office is all mixed in with all this too. So a lot going on right now. Yeah,
no, definitely. And I'm going to try and get to some more details as the show moves along on this subject in particular. But there is at least one current school board member, Tiffany Polifko, who's calling on the current superintendent, Aaron Spence, in Loudoun County to resign. Aaron Spence has only been on the job for, I believe, about 2 months now, having replaced the prior superintendent of schools there, who was busted for his handling of sexual assault cases within the school system. Are you at the point where you think that the new superintendent should step down as a result of all of this? What do you make of that idea?
Well, it's interesting. So I'm definitely watching how this issue is being handled at the school board level right now. Basically what's happening is, in my opinion, that, they're taking the same exact approach they did with the sexual assaults a few years ago, the same kind of communication where it's not really highly effective, clear, poignant, communication to parents about what's actually happening.
Right.
And I was really hoping with Dr. Spencer we'd see something very different, very transparent, very open, but it's just not happening. So it definitely raises a lot of serious questions for me. He had a listening session here at Parkview High School on October 12th, and I was there for that. There was an overdose earlier that day. And then he had his listening session with parents that night, and there was no mention whatsoever of anything related to drug overdose at that meeting.
Yeah, that sounds unfortunately familiar. The last superintendent wasn't forthcoming about sexual assaults in the bathrooms. In that case, there was a specific question about it, and then he lied about that.
Yeah.
But it's just disheartening. Also in Loudoun County, what we're seeing this week, a number of students walked out of class, supported by their parents who were also in attendance, who are protesting over the Loudoun County's allowance of girls in the boys' rooms and locker rooms, as well as boys in the girls' bathrooms and locker rooms. Should you join the Loudoun County School Board, what do you plan to do on that issue?
Well, I'm a former Division I volleyball player, so I have a pretty hard line about keeping boys and girls' locker rooms and bathrooms separate. They need to stay that way, especially with teenagers. It's bad enough, as an adult female to go into multi-gender bathrooms at this point. I think it's just so gross, and I know most women will agree with me on that one. But at the high school level, there's so many problems, and it's not hypothetical problems. I've talked to a lot of students here. Girls just don't even want to use the bathrooms in their high school. So, I really encourage these students to continue doing their walkouts, because I'm really pretty sure nobody talked to the students before they created 80/40 the way they did, and certainly didn't listen to what the majority of students and parents really want here in Loudoun, which is just some common sense around this stuff.
Yeah, once you get past all this craziness, and there's a lot of it, whether it's on drug overdoses or the wrong sexes being in the wrong bathrooms, what about the education system in Loudoun County? Which I thought was really the point of all of this. What do you intend to do, again, should you get the job?
Yeah, so here in Sterling, we have a really unique dichotomy of schools. They redistricted the Sterling district, and I now understand why. So my background is actually in management consulting. I've had a consulting business for almost 25 years, and I do human capital and HR consulting work. So I look at the systemic problems, frankly, in a way that most people probably don't, and I'm very data driven. So I've actually taken the SOL scores and other test score numbers and picked apart the Sterling Park schools, which are all Title I low and middle income families with subsidized their kids have subsidized meal plans. I took apart their education scores from the other part of Loudoun County. They added 3 schools over in Ashburn to the Sterling district that are high performing schools. So those numbers then help mask the numbers here in Sterling Park. And I've created actually a sign that I have at all of my polling locations that clearly shows you where the disparity is with kind of the haves and have-nots of kids in this district. It's crazy. And they're performing here in Sterling Park about 40% lower academically than the rest of the county. And it's unbelievable. I mean, they have math and science scores under 50%. And that's the average of 7 schools. There's some that are, in the 30s. It's pretty shameful. So one of my biggest things on the academics front is to be able to leverage Governor Youngkin and the state has given Loudoun County several $1 million to help address this. And we have half of the Title I schools in the county are in Sterling, and I would like to see half of that money allocated to our schools here in Sterling to help with tutoring, English as a second language for parents, and helping get those parents engaged with their kids learning and really help get these kids back up to speed.
So if you apply that money to those programs, you think you'll see some better academic outcomes? 40% is a huge number. I mean, to be that far behind.
Yeah, it's shocking, actually. And again, I understand now why the district was redistricted the way it was.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, you have the east side of Dulles Airport and the west side, the 3 schools closest to the west side of Dulles Airport, all in one school district now, which makes no sense.
So typically when you have low-performing schools, what you also have, I mean, one of the reasons for that is low literacy rates, where people just can't even actually read in English. Are you seeing that, low literacy problems?
Yeah, I mean, the English and the reading scores are really low too. Yeah, so that's where the tutoring really needs to come in. So, we really need to get these kids back up to speed. And Parkview and Sterling Park in general, these schools have different kinds of academic goals too. We definitely have college-bound students, but we also have a lot of kids that are interested in the trades and want to get, really deep into various trades and trade work. And they don't have a program over here on this side of the county that really helps address that. So in the new build of the new high school at Parkview, I'm really going to push and make sure they've got the right facilities well funded for these kids moving forward.
Amy Riccardi is who we're speaking with. She's a candidate for the Loudoun County School Board in the Sterling District. And Amy, do you get the sense that the energy is finally there for a changing of the guard in the Loudoun County School Board?
I do. And I'll tell you, I'm in a really interesting race. So the incumbent is not running, and I'm running against 2 Democrats. So it's the only 3-way race in the school board race. And I'm telling you, people are so ready for change. I have been at the polls all day, every day for the last 14 days. And I'm talking to voters as they're going in. And I've had so many people say, thank you for running. We really need a change here, in Loudoun County in general, but especially on the school board. So I hope people really do pay attention to this.
And Amy, tell me about yourself. Where do you come from? What's your background?
Well, so I'm originally from Texas, but I've lived here in Northern Virginia, in this area, since '86, so long time. Yeah. I have a master's degree in education from George Mason, and I actually teach in the business school there. So I teach a class on teams and interpersonal skills. And ironically enough, I have a couple of Parkview High School kids in my class, which is pretty awesome. Real salt of the earth, students in this program, and I really do enjoy it. I have this master's degree, but I also have a consulting business where I do human capital and HR consulting. So change management, employee engagement, recruiting, all of those things are really in my wheelhouse. So hopefully I'll be able to bring those skills to the board.
Well, if there's any organization that needs to be made more efficient, it's the Loudoun County School Board. So all the best to you, Amy Riccardi. Best of luck as you continue this campaign. It's almost done, and hopefully everybody's out there voting for you. Thank you so much for your time today. Well, it's not just the school board race in Loudoun County, old famous Loudoun County. It's also the Board of Supervisors race is going on right now in Virginia. Joining us now is Caleb Kirschner, a Loudoun County Board of Supervisors member. He's the Catoctin District Supervisor running for re-election. Caleb, good to have you with us, sir.
Thanks for having me, Vince. I'm glad to be on.
It is great to talk to you. As much trouble as Loudoun seems to cause in the news, it is a beautiful county. It is really nice. And I know that one of your goals has been to preserve kind of the rural regions of the county. Tell me about that, sir.
Yeah, so Western Loudoun is one of the things that makes us incredibly unique here in Loudoun County. My district makes up almost 50% of the landmass of Loudoun County in a population of 435,000, and yet it's obviously it's only holds about 1/8 of the population, and partly because zoning makes a difference, and we've done a really good job preserving it. We've preserved about 85,000 acres over the last 20 years, and we have about 65,000 more to go to permanently preserve it.
Yeah, but it seems like everybody wants to put more, higher and higher density housing everywhere. They want to fill up every square inch of that land, huh? Yeah,
it is a race. There's a lot of pressure by developers, but in Virginia, we have a conservation easement program that's been working incredibly well. It's an incentive by the state, and there are about 10 or 15 folks and even some individual landowners taking advantage of that, buying farms, putting them in easements, and permanently preserving them. Prince William kind of fell into this problem last year when they opened up their rural policy area to development, and we just don't want to see that happen in Western Loudoun. It's what makes us unique. We're basically the Napa Valley of the East here. We've got wineries, about 45 wineries and 50 breweries throughout the West here. Yeah,
I love it.
And people
love
love
that
the beauty.
Yeah, I definitely do. One of the other things people love about Loudoun County is the taxes are not quite as high as places like Fairfax and Prince William. Do you see that changing anytime soon?
Well, it has changed. I've been on the board now for 4 years. The 8 years before I got on the board, which was Republican controlled, they never raised taxes, and in several years they lowered them. All 4 years that I was on the board, they raised them. I voted against those tax increases. There just never seems to be a tax increase that certain folks on the board didn't want to see. And the problem that we're seeing now is there's also an attack against our data centers in Loudoun County, which has really helped to significantly reduce the tax rate. Our data centers literally produce over $600 million, which covers our whole operating budget on the county side of things. So I really think we need to continue to foster and grow our data center revenue, which most of our surrounding counties are somewhat jealous of.
Also, there's a big debate about tolls, including on the Dulles Greenway there in Loudoun.
Yeah, the poll we've actually at the county level. I mean, I have to say this is one good thing about my colleagues. We're all on the same page as far as that's concerned, and it's just one of those additional taxes that gets put on and burdened. And my district's the worst because we have to travel the furthest on the toll, especially if they went to distance-based tolling. They come from Route 7 and go all the way into D.C. or Tyson's or whatever the case may be, and the prices just keep moving up, both on the Greenway and the toll road. And we've successfully stopped increases on the Greenway, on the Greenway over the last year or two, and we're continuing to do that. We're actually spending county money to ensure that those toll increases don't go up, and fighting that with the commission. So it's just, again, another tax. I'd love to see the state step in and actually purchase the road. I think that would be great for the citizens of Loudoun County and those traveling from western part of the state over here in Winchester and whatnot.
When we think of, I want to move to schools now too with you, sir. We often think about the Loudoun County School Board in terms of handling schools, but the Board of Supervisors also has a role here. How do you view going forward how the Board of Supervisors should handle education in Loudoun?
Yeah, so we at the board, our primary responsibility is to cut the check to the school, right? And so there's always that struggle between funding and whatnot. And the problem is I have found in my first 4 years is we get a budget that gets sent to us, and without a lot of really knowledge of how that budget's being spent, and even if we say, yes, okay, we're going to send you this money, they can move that all around. And we have kind of a responsibility of the power of the purse to the citizens. So that is our big responsibility. And one thing that we did last year, we actually, Supervisor Tony Buffington and I, who represent the portions of the West out here, we asked our staff to go and look at other surrounding counties and how they're handling things. And we found out that we were spending far more in terms of a percentage of our budget. Over 67% of our budget was being spent on the schools. And we found out that the other surrounding counties, it was all the way down to like 48 and 49% potentially, and some of the Northern Virginia counties were spending on their schools. So we said, listen, that we're just spending too much of our budget. We're going to set it here. And because a lot of times we just get this large request and it's hard to say no to fund it. So we split it. I think we're at a 60-40 split now.
Finally, in the limited time we have here, Caleb Kirschner, again, Loudoun County Catoctin Creek District Supervisor. One of the big scandals involving the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors this year is a number of your members have been using funds to fly all over the planet, including to Ghana and on first-class flights with 5-star hotels and luxurious meals. Do you foresee that practice ending anytime soon?
So, yeah, I mean, I think that the Sister City program that we have has a lot of value to it. Obviously, I think what happened in this particular case, some of the supervisors who decided to go on this trip honestly should never have gone and certainly shouldn't have spent money the way that was spent. I think we can obviously take these trips and we need to keep a better eye on it because we have to really curtail our spending. I mean, we've been in the middle of coming out of COVID. We've been in the middle of a lot of increase in costs and housing and mortgage rates. So, yeah, we just need to keep an eye on these costs.
It might be time to cut back on the luxury travel. Hey, Caleb Kirschner, best of luck to you. You've got a big election coming up on Tuesday, re-election here. A lot of energy to get these Republican candidates elected. Sir, good to have you with us. Thank you.
Hey, thanks a lot, Vince.
That's Caleb Kirschner in Loudoun County. Again, early voting ends tomorrow in Virginia. Election day is on Tuesday. As they say, secure that vote. Coming up in the next hour, Mike Van Meter joins us. He's running for state senate in the Commonwealth. And we've got a rundown of the craziest Democrats running across the state.